Okay, I think we're live. Um, let's see. Yeah, Mary, I feel quite confident that things are working now, but yeah, I can't help myself. I have to. Oh my. Yeah. Could you say something, Danilo?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the stream. Okay. Anyways, okay, I feel confident we have a good setup now, so we don't need to do this test every time. Um,
All right.
I just need my music back. Okay, cool. Yes. So last time we were playing around with impact and like talking
Mm,
about queries and mutations and stuff like that. And it's funny because I haven't really written code using suspense and like how does this actually work and what are like good patterns and stuff. Because we talked about having these like wrapping components for the suspense boundary, and then you had these data fetching components almost.
mm,
And what I realized is that we don't actually need them, or at least in this case, we could refactor it. So what I did here is that this is like the main page, and then I have this outer suspense boundary, and then I have the global error boundary. A funny thing though is that if I flip these two around, that's when we get into the issue, the sign-in issue we had last time. Something really bad
mm.
happens if the error boundary is outside the suspense boundary. I don't know if it's because of impact or whatever. I haven't really dived into it, but anyways, that was the reason.
Sorry, what is the global error boundary? Like it catches any error that throws
Yeah.
by the application?
Mhm. Just a normal
It's
error
interesting.
boundary. So, because all the it's the same thing we use, like that you added in the project.
I see.
Um, but we need to use it with queries because they can either they throw the promise if the query is pending, or if the promise is rejected, it throws the error. So you should always combine suspense with an error boundary, really.
Hmm.
And I was thinking it would be nice to have like a type of component, like even the global error boundary is like using error boundary from React error boundary. Like it's such a low level thing dealing with errors. You know, you have the class and did catch error or something, the
Yeah,
life cycle thing. Not life cycle, I guess, but yeah, it needs to be a class. So we have this abstraction to make it easier to consume, but then well, it's almost like you should have an abstraction which is both the suspense boundary and the error. So you would have something like uh, I don't know.
suspense error boundary.
Yeah, suspense error boundary, and then you would have suspending. That would be like fallback. It's kind of weird that it's called fallback. And then you would have error or something, and then you would put the children in there. But sometimes you want to like generally handle errors, right? And other times you might
Yep.
want to handle it specifically to what it's suspending. Like it's so they don't have to be together, but sometimes they do fit together. Anyways, so last time in the editor file we had like 3 different components. One with the suspense, one for some data fetching. But what I realized is that it can just be one component. So in the editor now, we use the branch data store to suspend the branch query. And the thing about suspend is like it's a little bit mind bending because you've learned that React needs to resolve its hooks the same way every
Hmm.
time the component body runs. It's like if you have an if statement with a use hook or use state or something, it breaks, right? And that's kind of what happens here as well. When you suspend, you kind of stop execution in the component. So with the old mental model, it feels like you're breaking something, but you really aren't doing that. So here we are just waiting for the data. And when we actually have the data, we go and, yeah, maybe it's clearer if I do this. Can move them around. So first we get the data using suspend, but then we initialize picture by using fetch, because we don't want to suspend that because it has its progress event going. So here we rather so if initializing picture was also just promise, like just a promise that needs to resolve, then that could also be a suspend. But since we need access to this progress, this initialize picture progress, to get the events during the resolvement of the promise, we use fetch. Anyways, but here I just continue writing out the logic. Like, okay, so if initializing picture is rejected, we can just throw it, because that ends up in the same error boundary as if the data fails. And then if it's pending, we actually return the message, the progress message. And then when that is resolved, we have our data here already in the scope of the component. And then we have picture as a value as well, and we can like render the thing out. So it's kind of cool to see how you can even like you can combine fetch with suspend based on whatever your requirements are, and you don't actually have to split things up as much as you might think you have to.
Yeah, it's so cool that your component now seems more flat.
Yeah.
And it's less conditional. And for example, you used to have this explicit state in the editor where you should handle different different use cases, and now it's more flat. Like it's easier to see what is the possible rendering for this component.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's it's really a complicated flow, like getting the branch data, and then when the branch data is done, then go and grab picture, and then during picture you should update the UI with the progress of that, but when it's resolved you render out the editor. And it like talking about it, it's not complicated, but if you were going to implement this using a traditional pattern, it will be very difficult to read the code. But as you say, it's just line by line stating exactly what I said, like go get the branch data, start fetching picture, if it's rejected, throw it, if it's pending, show the progress, if it's done, we have the data, we have picture, render out the editor. It's really nice.
Yeah, I really like it. And especially because we are using one of the new React primitive, like it feels more we are going the right direction now. Like we are continually embracing the React and using what React is good at, like
Yeah.
rendering, you know.
Yeah, and it's, I guess this is like my biggest like epiphany, is that I thought React was really bad at data fetching, and it kind of is, right? Because you like dealing with promises in React, like pure promises, doesn't really work that well. So I was in this mental state of, okay, I have to do all the data fetching outside of React, but then you have the complicated thing of the state of the data fetching. Like, where do you store the state of the data fetching, and how does the UI know if the data fetching is done, and so on and so on. But now I completely flipped it around. Like when you have good primitives for React to consume data, React works really well for doing the data fetching. And then your external state doesn't need to think about that. It's rather React that kind of, as we do here, it's React that's doing the data fetching and then passing the initialized state to like what we call the scope here with the stores, and then the stores don't have to like do all this asynchronous data fetching logic stuff. It's really interesting.
Cool. Yeah. And also we talked the last time about this data boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Set a way just to it's just a way to say that this component below these children
Mm.
will always have access to this data that we
Yeah,
just fetch it at this component level. So it's so cool now that we can rely
yeah,
on this data in
exactly,
the data state.
exactly. Yeah, so what I thought we could do first, just for fun, is to like now we hard coded this, but I thought we could put it in the URL and just see how that looks. Because that's always interesting. Like, how do you do routing and stuff like that? So
Mm-hmm.
to do that, we need a new package. Is it typed client router? I think that's the name of it. Like, there are different client routers. It's really, really sad how React Router has just overtaken Google. Like, you can't find other types of routers without like being kind of forced into React Router. And especially now, as I understand it, React Router is being adjusted to fit with Remix.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad because there are different ways of doing routing, and it's conceptually it's monopoly on routing, which is interesting. So I try to find. I remember I found this really good TypeScript based client side router once. I can't remember the name of it, but I can't find it. Like, I've been googling for ages,
Mm-hmm.
and then I talked to. I got an email from a guy at Notion, who's working on. They have this calendar app they're working on,
Mm-hmm.
and I played around with routers before, and then I got really inspired talking to him, so I built a new one.
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah, I thought we could
That's
use
great.
that one, but it's actually quite awesome because it's not because we should necessarily use it, but it does some things that's points to how TypeScript has evolved and stuff like that. So let's just do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we would
But
have like, yeah.
as you are talking about when they try to find alternatives for a project, I usually use a website called NPM Trends. It tries to compare
Ah.
packages
Mm-hmm.
and it gives alternatives for you if you want to see something different. I know that, for example, React to router, it's I don't know, these two is such important keywords, and
Mm-hmm.
if you search for this in Google, it will always return the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's the alternative to find um, alternatives.
Yeah,
I can,
that's a good. Was it npm trends? Was that the name of it?
yeah, npm trends, and then it suggests a couple of similar projects, and then we
Ah,
can compare.
interesting. Yeah.
I can paste it here in YouTube chat,
Hmm.
and then you can see obviously how popular this project is,
Mm-hmm.
how many issues, how many stars, and try to find some criterias and what is the best solution for you.
That's really interesting. I never used that before, but I definitely will. That's awesome. Oh, and then you can like compare them. Ah.
Yeah, right below the search bar, you have a couple of suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
which is similar to this project, and then you can add more and more projects to compare them between each other.
That's really nice. That's awesome. Huh. Cool. Okay, so let's create a router. Let's see, does it find it? No, it doesn't. So here we can just say, so I removed like all concepts of sandbox here because I noticed during our conversations we were like, it can be a branch or it can be a sandbox, and it just adds confusion. Like it's difficult to find a good terminology that encapsulates both a sandbox and a branch, and it doesn't make any sense for what we're doing because we're not going to open a sandbox. So yeah, so we have a branch page, and that's owner repo branch, like that. And then we can just return this router, and I actually think that's it. And what we can do now, we can use this router. Oh, just going to export a hook for it. Yeah, I don't think I did. I was very explicit last time, but now I'm exporting hooks, so you can just consume them directly without explicitly using the, like, it doesn't matter. It depends on how you like to do it, but
cool.
Oh. Like that. And what we should be able to do now is just check. So you have router and current. It can either be the branch route or it can be undefined. Like it's a URL that isn't identified by the router. So what we can do is if current name not equal to branch, we can just return like could not find page or something. But now it knows that the current route is branch, and then the magic here is, I'll show you now. Is that it has params, and it even has owner, repo, and branch, which is kind of insane. This is one of the superpowers of TypeScript, is that you can actually infer data from a string. So it actually understands owner, repo, and branch here. So it automatically produces the params.
How did you do this?
How do you do this?
How did you split a string to become a type?
Let's see. I can show it to you. I didn't write it myself. I tried to, but it's a bit complicated. But I found a good article. Where the hell do I have this? All repositories, typed client router.
Sorry for deviating the main topic, but it's so interesting.
Yeah. We should talk about that's why we're here. Talk about interesting stuff, and this is interesting. Okay, so this is what it does. It's called extract params. So the generic here is just a string. So that is the string I wrote for the route. And what it does is that it checks if this is kind of crazy. You can do this in TypeScript. You can, as long as a type extends string, you can use a template string. What's it called? A string template literal to check what's in the string. Which sounds kind of crazy. So what's really important here, a really important detail, is that this string here isn't just type string. This is a constant. So this is typed as the actual string owner, like as you see it. That's really important. If it didn't do that, it would just be like a generic string, and it wouldn't have any idea about what's actually inside the string.
Mm-hmm.
So what it does is that it checks if it matches like a path, really. Like, does it have a slash in it? And then it gives it what's before the slash and what's after the slash.
Mm-hmm.
And
And what
then,
is, sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I was just going to say, and then it passes the first part of the path to extract param, and then it just takes the rest and does the same thing again. So it kind of like it what's it called, array shift. It kind of shifts the path. So it
Mm-hmm.
takes the first part of the path and then it kind of goes through it. And then for everything it takes from the path, it passes in as a segment here. And then it checks if it extends colon or it extends asterisk. So asterisk would be used for any like path, if that makes sense. You could say like asterisk whatever, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
stops there, and then you get the whole path. So we could use that for like yeah. So yeah, a good point here is like this branch shouldn't really be branch. It should be asterisk branch, because we can have slashes in our branch names.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more correct. Anyways, and then it just creates this record out of it.
It's amazing. And what is segment? I can see here
Yeah,
where it
so
comes from.
if we think about like the thing we created, owner repo branch. So in this first pass through, the segment is this part, and then the rest is this part.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first run through, when we get down here, it passes owner in here, and that's what it's continuing inferring. So it gets a hit on this one, and then it takes the yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, a segment it's a generic, but when
Yeah.
you say infer segment, we are creating this generic, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
I was confused. I think I never used it infer, so I was confused of where this segment came from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we
Yeah.
are creating the exact moment when you use the infer keyword.
Mhm. It's the same with it's because of extends. So you can do like t extends uh promise infer value, for example.
That's so cool. I
Yeah, that's
I
really
got
cool.
it, but I would never came with this solution. Came up with this solution.
It's crazy stuff. And people have used this to create um what did they do? You could give it a JSON string. Again, it needs to be a constant, but then it would actually return the type of the parsed result, uh,
Mm.
which is insane. Yeah, which is just completely insane. Um, I'm not sure what you would use it for either, but yeah. uh, let's see. Let's params would be, or maybe we could even say owner repo branch equals router current params. Owner repo branch branch yes, and then in the editor we need to actually take those as owner repo branch owner string repo string branch string, and then it's like the workspace ID is a query. So what we can do about that is it depends on how, like, what kinds of abstractions you want to do. Like now we created a low level router store. We could have created something more like domain specific. So we would actually like expose an API to deal with the branch. So that we could kind of, like we do in our application, like we have this very domain specific router where if you go to the branch part of the router, you can go and grab the workspace ID from the query.
Mm-hmm.
But here we have no idea about that, but we can just do it very simply by using the router. Or maybe we should just, we can do it at the top, maybe. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just say that we need a workspace ID here. And then we do it here. So this is the params, and then the workspace ID we can get from router. What was it? Queries? Wait, what was this? I can't remember this. What's this? Oh yeah, workspace ID. So this is just grabbing the raw queries from the URL. So it doesn't know what it is. It could be a string, it could be a string or null array, or it can be null. So like we could create an abstraction around this to, like, as I said, to kind of get the details of the current branch route, which would then have the guarantee that you always had on the repo branch and workspace ID and stuff like that. But it's kind of tricky because you can guarantee the params, because that's how you identify the URL. Like if the params aren't there, the URL isn't valid, or the route isn't valid, so you won't get there. But the query, like, there's no guarantee for that. It's really interesting.
Oh yeah, I see your point.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, let's just call it string. Let's do that. And now we need to do one more thing, and that is because we're on base. Was it impact? That's where the routing starts, because we are on the impact route. So we have like a base path. But now in theory, we should be able to, I can't remember that one, but we should be able to say owner repo branch workspace ID like that. And we should do you think it will work?
It should be.
Okay, ready?
I trust you.
Is it Vite server? Oh no, of course. It's the impact route. So this wasn't our router. It's because we use Next.js. And the impact thing is we have to change this to any, so that Next.js will give us our impact page regardless of the full impact URL.
So, like by now, Next.js was trying to handle the router for us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Hey, look at that. It worked.
Cool.
That's cool. All right.
Amazing.
Should we?
It's so cool. We even can see the progress of the picture side. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do what we're supposed to do. It's the create PR flow. And I guess what would be fun to start with is the Git status. So we can kind of we can show the current Git status. And we already did something related to that. We have, yeah, we implemented the Git status, but maybe we could try now to create a branch of CodeSandbox, and then we can like go and change stuff, and then we can see that the Git status actually updates here. And I've started to call it query explicitly. So let's just do that, because we didn't test this. We just wrote the logic, I think. Anyways, so what we can do is we have our sidebar. Oh yeah, and this is where we had I used the sidebar for the sign-in stuff, but I don't think we need that anymore. Then we have like a, how do we handle that? Oh no, okay, so we show it regardless. Yeah, so I kind of hijacked the sidebar now to be this authentication thing. Maybe we should just put that into its own component.
Yeah, I think we could create some like a Git panel component.
And then we can also have like I think it's the thing now is that it's only the sign-in button, so we can have a sign-in component, and then we just move.
Yeah, that's right.
From the sidebar, we can just move all this stuff really into sign-in. Oh shit. Sign in, observe, use CSP API, and we want to take this from our exploration. It's kind of annoying, this full path thing. Anyways, so we have our sign in button, and then we can return like a, what do we call it? Stack?
Stack, yeah.
Let's stack it. We don't need this one, but we can still, is it horizontal by default? How do I change that?
It's vertical by default. If you want horizontal, you can, yeah, but if you want vertical, it's default, yeah.
Okay, but maybe we can just use picture here, and then Git status query, was that the name of it? And let's use picture. Oh, I don't think I actually exported picture. Picture store. Oops. Use picture. There we go. Ugh. And we need to observe. Well, we don't, and that this is also a thing I've been reflecting on. Is like these queries, they don't need, they are not based on signals. They are just, you're just subscribing to them. Like they have their own like React hooks under the hood. While if you use a signal, you would need to observe it, and that's not completely clear. What, like, both of them are reactive, but they are reactive in different ways, and it's that's also interesting to me. Like, especially if you want to do what Impact tries to do, which is to allow you to use different reactive primitives for solving different challenges, but they aren't based on the same thing. So sometimes you For example, if you use MobX, whenever you access anything using MobX, you would need to use like an observer around your component. But if you use RxJS, you wouldn't do that. And yeah, it's a little bit... yeah.
And this new keyword using is a new TypeScript thing, right?
Yeah. So you could... so what you would normally do with like MobX and the impact signal is that you would say const sidebar instead. And then you would do observe, like this is the normal syntax. And it's the same with MobX. And it just says observe anything inside here. But the challenge with this pattern is that you saw I had to change how I define and export the function.
Mm-hmm.
I can't like do this without like, I could do this, export the default observe sidebar. But what I mean is that it dictates how you define and export your component. While if you're using the using keyword, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't interrupt anything. It's just another statement in your component body.
Yeah. And
So
when you wrap your component with a function, you need to deal with types. And for example, we have this function from React, which is forward and ref.
Yeah.
And once we start using, we need to think in details what is the types we want to return by this function. And your component starts to seem very weird.
Yeah.
And it seems to me now using this using keyword, it's easier to opt in but output of this
exactly.
this feature.
It's just less disruptive. And also like with the other pattern, like the higher order component thing, you also risk your component popping up as anonymous.
Oh, that's true.
So yeah, it's just, it doesn't do anything, but it's really cool. Like this pattern doesn't affect anything. That's what I meant to say. It's really cool how it works, because it basically just, it creates an object, and then the using keyword, the only thing it really does is that it knows about this object because of the using keyword. And when this scope exits, which is like when the function is called and the function exits, this using keyword will then call a special dispose method on that object. So it's basically a way to just call something whenever a function exits. And that's exactly what observability is. It's like start observing at the beginning of the component body, stop observing when the component body exits. So it's really fitting for that scenario. And it's really designed for like resource management. So you can do like, you can acquire like an connection to a database, for example. And when you're done consuming that connection, it will automatically dispose itself just because the function exits. But it's the exact same thing you want to do with observability, which is really cool. All right. Git status. I guess we can just... Oh, sorry. Git status query. So to get the Git status, we want to... I guess we can suspend. In this case, we don't want to show anything here without... Well, arguably, like, or maybe we should put this, since we have the sign-in button there, we can do as you suggested, like we have the Git panel, and then we rather put this stuff inside the Git panel, and then we can like suspend the Git panel, and then something like, I don't know. No. Let's see. And then export function Git panel. using picture. And then we suspend the git status because there's no reason to look at the git panel without the git status. And then
Yep.
we can return something. Git status dot change files. Oh, why didn't it? Is it? Oh, I think it's an object. Is there something else we can? Okay, I guess we can values the length of change files.
Yeah, or for a first task, you could stringify everything. But no,
Oh
that's
yeah,
rubber.
yeah. We can use a what's it called? Pre. Isn't that pre? That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good point. Git status. No. There you go. Okay.
That's it.
So let's go on stream and create a branch that we can play with. Oh yeah, we're service workers. It should be working now though. I did oh shit, it doesn't work the next time. Yeah, I'm having an issue with, it's kind of difficult with service workers to, like, you have to clone the response. Yeah, I wonder why. Maybe it's because when I think it's when I consume it from the cache. So here I'm getting the response and then I return it. Yeah, we need to return a clone of the response. Because like it puts the response in the cache, and then the next time I open it, it uses what's from the cache and returns the response. But then the browser or the application code will actually read the response, and then it's locked. So if you want to keep the response in the cache, you always have to clone it. Anyways.
Like debug. I can create a branch if you want.
Yeah, could you do that?
Sure. Just give me a minute. I'm using the preview to create a branch.
Yeah, I'll finish the sidebar git panel. Oh yeah, we are getting the git status at least here.
Sorry, it's taking longer than expected. Getting 500 errors for some reason.
Isn't that typical?
Okay, I will create a branch. Call it chicken soup.
Oh my god, chicken soup in one word.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Chicken soup. If I hyphen between them.
Okay.
Between the words.
Is it ready?
Yeah, it's ready.
Nice. Okay, go and change
I can
something.
see you join.
Oh, you saw me join?
Yeah.
Oh, you changed git ignore.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's really awesome.
When you create a file. Can you see it?
Yeah, chicken soup markdown file.
It's cool.
This is my big dream. Is like you see how little code it takes, like regardless of like what we're exploring with state management, but just having CodeSandbox API and the picture client, how easy it is to like start playing. Um, it's really
Oh
really
yeah.
cool. Um, okay, so we have our Git status. We won't implement an actual code editor, so we'll rely on you to make code changes. But what we want to do is whenever the Git status changes, we want to generate an AI commit message. Um, given um, given what? Given that we're looking at the commit panel, but we kind of are. So yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're gonna do, but at least let's create the ability to generate a commit message. So I guess we can. I'm just wondering if we should start splitting it up. Let's do that just to keep it super clean. So we have like a Git store, and then Git store, use Git, and then the picture store will just be, it's just going to return the raw picture client for now. Cool. And then to get access to the picture client, we can just use picture here. Let's call it picture client. Cool. So now we have the Git store, and then we can have like, well, I guess you can argue that like generating the commit message is also part of Git.
Mm. Yeah, the commit itself makes sense, but when you think the commit messaging, it might be, it makes, for me, it makes more sense to be another store
Yeah. Okay, let's try that.
because it has different dependencies.
Yep. Cool. I'm just going to. Where is it? Branch scope provider. So now, so this is also something I'm kind of part of the exploration now. It's like now we just created a new like Git store, and previously in Impact, if you were to try to consume that Git store, it will actually throw an error because it would detect that you haven't actually provided it through a scope. But now I decided to not do that. So it would still throw an error because in the Git store we are trying to use picture, and that would actually fail because it's since the Git store isn't provided through a scope, it will be created like in the main default global scope, and picture doesn't exist there. It exists in the branch scope. So we'll kind of throw an error in there. And I guess this is kind of I'm kind of exploring the effect of that. Is this hard to wrap your head around? Do you get like weird errors? Does it get difficult to understand how things fit together? So it's the whole, like we talked about last time, like you want things to be decoupled, but at some point they also need to be coupled. And where do you express that, and how do you kind of understand that? Let's see, Git store. Sorry, it's not here. Where's the score branch scope? Here it is. Git store. Cool. Oh, okay. We have our Git store, and then let's create our, what should we call it? Commit.
What it is?
Should it be just about the commit message?
Um, maybe AI store?
AI store. Okay, let's try that.
And then this AI store has different capabilities like creating messages, autocomplete, this stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing we have to think about is that whenever we automatically generate a commit message when the git status changes, but we should only do it when we actually look at the git panel, because that's where we display the message. Currently we always display it, so we could just start with that. Whenever the git status changes, we want to generate a commit message and we want to display that commit message. So let's just start there and then see what happens. So what we can do is that we can implement this as commit message, and this, since we want to subscribe to its pending state, like generating the commit message and so on, so we can use a mutation for that. And then we should be able to, let's put it up here, commit message mutation. So we can point to picture clients, AI, suggest commit, and we pass it the files.
Yeah, the pending files.
Yeah. So I guess we can also we can go and grab the Git store. And this is also really interesting. And this is nothing to do about like impact in that sense. It's more it's basically when you do, it's kind of a dependency injection, these stores, because they just use each other. And then there's like an underlying dependency injection happening. And how do you deal with, so if we think about dependency and injection with classes, if one class dependency injects another class, and that class also dependency injects the other class, you get like a circular dependency thing. And it's really interesting because on one side you can argue that you're modeling it wrong. Like that shouldn't happen. Then you should rather move the code that causes the circular dependency into the other class, because it actually belongs there. The circular situation is like an indication that you modeled or organized your code in the wrong way. But I've also seen these dependency injection tools actually handle this, so you can like lazily inject things. But anyways, we don't have this issue now, so let's just go and use the Git store.
But just one question. You could pass the Git status as an argument in commit message mutation, right?
Yes.
For example, when we want to indeed commit the commit message, you could use it as an argument and pass the pending files, right?
Yeah, we could do that. The reason I really got the Git status was to listen to changes to it, because we want to automatically generate a new message whenever the Git status changes. So I would do what you say, like so I think it's just a string array.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then we would pass files here, and then what we can do with the git status query here is that we can, like, say, use cleanup just to, and then we could say on change, and then whenever this changes, we'll go and I guess that's changed. What's the? Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. Git status. Because if the git status is fulfilled, so this is how the query, like initially the query is pending, right? And this is the thing. I discussed this with Alex a lot as well. It's like, and we talked about this last time as well. Like if you have an asynchronous value, and that value is a list, you can just give it like an initial array, an empty array, and that's fine. But for a git status, that doesn't make sense. You can't have an initial value for a git status, because you really need to know the target and remote and all that stuff. So that means that you always have to treat it as an asynchronous value. And in this case, we just want to know whenever the status is fulfilled, which is when it's initially fetched. But every time our git status updates here, we set a new value. And that's also a fulfilled query. So it's being fulfilled every time this happens. The set value happens. So that's why we have to check it. But it is correct. Like, well, you can, I guess you can argue that, well, okay. So what we could do is like, on change is low level. It's like, okay, whenever the git status changes, I want to know exactly what happened. Like, was it rejected? Because that could also happen. Maybe we refetch the git status from pitcher and then it's suddenly rejected. But you could argue that you don't care about that in this context. You only care about when there's a new value there. So you could say on change, it could have like an on change value. And then you would always get the value here. Yeah, I'm just reflecting on like what kinds of APIs make sense.
On change value, you mean every time when the promise is fulfilled, and then you get a new value. Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. So you wouldn't have the query state coming in here. You would just have the value coming in here because that's the only time it triggers. But anyways, for now, we don't have that API. So now we should be able to say commit message mutation, mutate, git state. And then I guess it's like object.keys, git status dot value dot changed files. Because changed files, every key in changed files is the file. Is it the full path? I guess it is. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, not sure, but should be.
Okay, so what we implemented now is the possibility to ask for a commit message, but we're also listening to the git status whenever it changes. We'll also ask for a new commit message. And that means that we should now be able to subscribe to this mutation. And when you go and change some code that updates the git status, that should trigger this code, which triggers the mutation, which will trigger the subscription on the mutation component, and we should like see it pending, and we should also see the result when it's done. Where's the git panel? Let's stack it. Oh, we're actually okay. Let's try this before we end it. The thing we have to be careful about now is that the Git status only changes when something is added or removed from the files list. It's not when changes are made within the file.
Oh, okay.
Then we need to come on. We have the Git status query, and then we can commit message. Let's just call it mutation. And let's use AI. Was that what we call it? Use AI. Oh, I always
Use
forget.
AI store.
AI. I guess it should be uppercase. AI store. Yeah, let's do that. Git panel, use AI. And then we have commit message. And then we can, oops, subscribe to that. Commit message. Let's call it state. I'm not sure what to call these things. But we should, yeah, I guess we can use another pre. And then we can say, we really have like, we have idle, we have pending, we have resolved or fulfilled and rejected. I guess we could just say content here and then no updates or something. And then we can check if commit message state and status is pending. And then we can say the content is getting commit message. Else if commit message state, I will probably write this differently, but since we're out of time, the content will be commit message state value commit. And hopefully it, well, I guess we should have the error as well in case we have an error. Oh no. Reason. Like that. Cool.
Cool.
So yeah, if you, oh, something went wrong. Oh yeah, could not initialize AI store. We forgot to add it. It really bothers me. I can't use that shortcut and then get import. There we go.
Cool. Let me know when I can add the file.
Oh, come on. Oh, I'm getting that. Oh, need to provide at least one file. Well, at least we saw that. That's kind of nice. At least we saw the error.
So it did work.
I think it worked. AI store. If it's fulfilled and... and this is the annoying thing. Because now I'm checking if it's fulfilled. But I need to check if it's fulfilled to type-wise get access to change files. But then I also want to do an if statement.
I see.
But we can do, if it's not fulfilled, then we return. And then changes. We do, or files, I guess. Oh, come on. And then if files.length, we'll go and do it. Let's try that. Okay, try adding a
Cool.
file.
Just did.
Oh, the diff for this commit is too big to suggest a message. Is it?
Uh,
What did you change? Soup MD?
I just yeah, I just add a file. Let me add some content. Maybe because I didn't add any content.
Yeah, I think our error messages aren't like we're not actually displaying the error messages in the actual editor. So we haven't really reviewed them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
That's
interesting.
weird.
But I guess now it doesn't change. Like we can listen for the save event to trigger, but
I see.
if you
What about, yeah, I just removed another file. Let's see. Nope.
oh, that's in deleted files. We're not checking that. We're just checking change files. How the hell are we going to do this? uh, I guess I can. Oh, god damn it! We should just have listened for. Um, wait, no, you should be able to. No, of course you can just change a file. Of course, change an existing
Okay.
file. Yeah, because it's just if it's already in the list of change files, it won't update again. But of
Oh, I
course,
see.
oh, it's interesting. Why are we getting the diff for this commit is too big? That's weird. Could you try
Oh,
restarting the VM?
bec because we are not using the right path. We're using this
Oh,
0AD.
oh, we are. Oh, okay. That explains it. So we can't use the keys. What
Yeah.
is the?
Need
Oh,
need to
sorry.
use the values path.
Oh, sorry. Good catch. So we use the values and then we just map file.path.
Path.
That's what we want. Okay, let's try again. Yay! If you try to
Cool.
change another file.
Sure.
Yay! Awesome.
That's cool.
It's actually working. That is really cool. And that,
Yeah.
like, again, this points to how, like, it's always nice to have APIs or like using tools and libraries that kind of empowers you to do complicated things more efficiently. But like,
Mm-hmm.
we're like talking to VMs and Git status and generating AI commit messages and actually like committing code from a VM to GitHub, and it's like it's the type of stuff we're able to do with this that's so fun.
Yeah. This kind of a challenge it wasn't supposed to be easy,
Yeah,
and you'll never be.
cool.
Cool.
But
I'm really glad we achieved it today.
yeah, this is awesome. This is really awesome. And then next time we can, I think we should add this like toggle of showing the panel or not, because it really is part of the complicated nature of that state management.
Mm-hmm.
So we can add that toggle, and then we can create the create PR button, which should only be active if you actually have any changes. So that's also a complicating factor. And then when you have changes and you create the PR, we need to generate the AI commit message, given that it hasn't already been created for the changes that we have, and then actually perform the commit. And then when we're committing, we should show the status of committing as like a badge thingy appear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense.
awesome. But okay, let's stop there. This was fun, Danilo. Are you
Yeah,
proud?
definitely it was. Yeah, like I can see our current code without these now, and
Yeah.
it's so exciting. Like how we can express the same feature in so many different ways,
Mm-hmm.
and we keep iterating and learning with our mistakes and um, our success as well. So
Yeah.
really glad we are you are making this for real. Really
Yeah,
glad.
it's really cool. Like the thing for me, the big takeaway of, as you say, like even though we made some mistakes, it it led me to like this realization about context providers actually being a really good thing. It's just that they're really hard to manage in a React application. But just the concept of what we've been doing of kind of putting these context providers, like we define them very separately. We already kind of have stores. It's just that we're
Hmm.
using React's primitives to define those stores with context providers, and they're just not performant enough, and it's just very tricky to do use effects for everything and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
but at its core, like organizing into these different um, hooks and then expose them together, it really makes sense. It's just, yeah. So this just
yeah,
kind of solidifies that pattern, and using primitives that makes it much easier to consume that state.
yeah. The thing I like the most with Impact is now that we have this subscribe and the won't change API,
Mm,
and then we can simply get rid of those use effects
yeah.
that are so confusing. And yeah, I feel that sometimes I kind of fighting against this use effect,
Yeah.
and having a clear API to watch, subscribe those state changes,
Hmm.
it's a game changer for me. And
Yeah.
just one feedback. You talk about the difference between on-change value, and
Mm,
then we have subscribe. Um, Maybe when I when if I if I would write this code, I would be confused about which one should I use, won't change or subscribe. And
mm.
if you add a won't change value, it might be even more confusing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, yeah, that's so at the core of the challenge, is that you have this very simple concept of, in this case, like a mutation or a query, but depending on the context, you want to consume them in different ways. Like, uh, but how do you build an API that makes it easy to understand which API to use in the context you're in?
Mhm.
So, like, how do you make it clear that this is how you do suspend, or this is how you do, for a query it's called fetch, but it's not obvious using fetch that you get the state of the query and you're subscribing to the state of the query, as opposed to suspend, which just gives you the value. And then, as you say, you
Mhm.
have onChange, which is just an event listener on the query state, which is useful in a context. We just used it here in the AI store, but still, it's not like, as you say. I completely agree, and I do wonder
Mhm.
if there's like a more,
I was
designing
thinking,
APIs is difficult.
yeah, yeah, totally. But I was wondering, usually want to subscribe to two two things, like the promise itself or the value.
Mm,
So maybe you could draw. API that, okay, here's the value,
Hmm.
and you have a different subscribe when you want to listen for values, value changes, or the promise state changing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
a
exactly.
random idea.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, I feel like this is the yeah, I think I mentioned this last time as well. Like the implementation details and like concepts are ready. It's the API surface and actually consuming things, what to name things and all that stuff. That's kind of so great about this kind of exploration, because now we're in the trenches, actually implementing very complicated stuff, and then we
Yeah,
kind of how natural is it to use the API surface? But yeah, let
yeah,
me know if you like. Oh, like if you have come up with like a specific way you would want to consume it, and then I'll reflect on this as well.
cool.
Uh,
Yeah, like naming is the hardest thing
yeah,
in code, definitely.
yeah, and just the fact, and it's not consistent now. For example, you would do like fetch that like that runs the query, but what you get back is the query state. But when you're in where is the mutation? But when you're sorry, Git panel. But when you want to subscribe to mutation state, you use subscribe. So query fetch is partly the same as mutation subscribe, but query fetch also runs the fetch. While subscribe on the mutation only listens to changes on the mutation state. And it's, yeah, it's so hard.
I see.
But still, yeah, I think we can figure it out. But this is really tricky.
Cool. Let's
Yeah.
keep iterating.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for joining, Danilo. I guess we'll find some time in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this session. Can't
Yeah.
wait for the next one and keep it winning.
Yep. We'll talk later.
Bye, thank you.
Bye bye.